Sticking with that story now, as last night, Conservative MP William Wragg confessed to leaking fellow MPs' contact details after being lured into a honey trap sexting scandal.
The openly gay MP for Hazel Grove in Manchester said he handed over the phone numbers to a man he met on the dating app Grindr. Wragg admits he was mortified and apologised for his weakness after claiming the man had compromising things against him. Well, joining us now are the Times' chief political commentator, Aubrey Allegretti, and former political advisor, Leon Emirali. Aubrey, this was your scoop for the Times. You spoke to William Wragg and got that confession from him. Suspicions had started swirling for a day or so in Westminster that he might be involved. You then spoke to him. Tell us what he had to say.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, the sort of public nature of this story came out in the last 24 to 48 hours because the website Politico broke that there had been these approaches. But actually, there have been people who were approached in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 weeks who have been talking about who could be behind all of this. And so, sort of behind the scenes, there has been a much sort of quieter but more interesting kind of guessing game going on in Westminster. Yesterday, I spoke to Will Wragg and he effectively admitted that he had been involved in this plot by passing on the numbers of some of his colleagues, MPs, including ministers, to this person that he met on a gay dating app, and that information was used by somebody else to solicit explicit photos of MPs.
And Leon, we've been talking about this morning. Will Wragg, openly gay. It's absolutely fine to go on a gay dating app and have conversations and so on. He made a number of mistakes, not least sharing explicit photographs, but also when you then leak details of fellow MPs, that crosses the line.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, David. I think what he does in his private life, who he shares pictures with, is up to him, not a problem. But I think when it comes to encroaching on other people's privacy, which ultimately looks like what he's done by handing out numbers of other MPs, seems to be a really ill-judged piece of behaviour. And I think that for him in particular, you know, it is embarrassing, but we know that Will Wragg isn't going to be standing at the next election. We know that that his political journey in that sense is coming to an end, but that doesn't take away the gravity of potentially how some of his colleagues might be feeling about what's happened.
No, absolutely. And when you spoke to Will, what did he say when you confronted him with all of this? The one word that isn't used is blackmail, but obviously there was information that someone had about him that could have been used. Did you ask him why he didn't go to the police?
He was incredibly remorseful, and I think he wanted to come clean because he knew that it was the best thing. And what effectively he'd got sucked into was a situation where he felt like he'd made one sort of error and then felt that he couldn't escape from that kind of spiral, which is why he kept sending the numbers. And so I think he sort of finally decided enough was enough and it was time to come clean. In terms of the kind of reason that why he felt so compelled to do this, he doesn't sort of fully explain. He basically says, I felt like they had compromising material on me that could be used against me, but he doesn't say that was ever sort of explicitly threatened.
It does expose the vulnerability of MPs and their personal security, their personal numbers being handed over. But on a sort of more serious note, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Alicia Kearns, is suggesting this could be the work of foreign spooks. There are darker forces at play here.
Indeed. We don't know that. I mean, that's speculation at this point. But what I do know is that when I worked in Parliament a few years ago, you know, we were inundated with briefings from the authorities telling us how to be cyber aware, telling us how to be cyber safe.
Don't know who you're texting, don't send them a naked picture.
Well, indeed. And if you don't know...
for anyone, let alone...
Yeah.
It goes for anyone, let alone those working in positions of power in Parliament.
No, absolutely. I mean, I feel desperately sorry for him. And I think one of the things is, of course, MPs have very difficult jobs, long hours, for example. And we were talking about this earlier, whether he felt particularly lonely or whatever. It does beg the bigger question about security for MPs generally, advice they're being given as well.
Yeah, and absolutely, you know, it's correct. They are given so much kind of advice and protection. But at the end of the day, if an individual makes a sort of poor choice of judgment, there's nothing that any sort of system of protection can do to stop against that. And the issue here is that there were 2 MPs separate to William Wragg who did send this person explicit pictures back. Who knows where that information has gone and what it could be used for?
Yeah.